I did not expect to say this when I walked into the theater, but Avengers: Infinity War is one of the most brilliant screenplays that I have ever had the pleasure of watching. This has been pointed out by basically every film critic under the sun, but by all conventional writing wisdom, the Avengers movies really shouldn't work, and with the first two, you can kinda argue that they don't. The first Avengers movie succeeded mainly on the novelty of bringing all of those different big actors together to kick ass and exchange quips. Nothing like it had ever really been attempted in cinema before, and the alien invasion changed the Marvel Cinematic Universe just enough that the movie felt like a worthwhile part of that story. But then, Age of Ultron was a bit of an unfocused mess, which did very little to contribute to the overarching plotline of the MCU, despite having a bit to say about surveillance states. Captain America: Civil War was a far bigger game changer by a long shot, and that left me and a lot of other people feeling like the MCU was maybe running out of steam. The individual hero films were still solid, but the big events that they were building to would be, at best, fun action romps for people who are deeply invested in the lore. It was clear going into Infinity War that what worked before wouldn't cut it anymore. Marvel needed to find a way to tell a real, substantial story with a proper beginning, middle, and end that satisfyingly continued several other storylines during its runtime. That was the only way to make this event movie feel like a real event. And holy crap, they pulled it off. Like, I'm pretty sure that in 50 years' time, film scholars are going to be discussing Infinity War the same way that they now discuss Empire Strikes Back, The Godfather, and other monuments of genre film. And I'm about to break down exactly how it does that in a lot of detail. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, and you want to experience this generation's Luke, I am your father moment with fresh eyes, this is your last chance to get out of this space. Go watch that movie. I'm assuming that if you're still here, you're down for spoilers, so here goes. Going into production, Infinity War had three essentially impossible problems to solve, all three of which happened to make the other two problems harder to solve as well. Firstly, they had to take the lead actors of what amounts to 10 different fully realized film series and make sure that each of the more than 20 principal actors of those films are big enough to get top billing on the poster, all while contributing something meaningful to the overall plot. Secondly, they had to make the plot of the film feel complete and self-contained. With 4 more new franchises tacked on to deal with since Ultron, Infinity War couldn't conceivably make a big final battle scene like that work in the same way. So, they didn't. Instead, Marcus and McFeely split the characters up and gave the film 3 climactic action scenes, with distinctive types of action and color palettes to keep them separate from one another. The biggest fight is, of course, the battle for Wakanda, a massive multi-fronted battle scene on the same scale as Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings, with a solid dozen superheroes and thousands of soldiers fighting together against 3 supervillains. This fight is very green. Then you've got the battle with Thanos on Titan, where Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and half of the Guardians of the Galaxy come together against one seemingly unstoppable foe. The setting of this fight is very orange. Lastly, you've got Thor, Rocket Raccoon, and the adorably surly teenage Groot working with giant Peter Dinklage to restart a massive Starforge and create a weapon that can actually kill Thanos for good. It's heavy on black and gray. It's important that these scenes feel different from each other, both visually and in terms of the action that's going on, because it makes it a lot easier for us as an audience to keep track of everything. By separating the 3 climaxes so cleanly, it's easy to compartmentalize things. And somehow, all of these scenes still feel connected, because the people involved in them split off to join up with each other from the film's 2 inciting incidents: the Guardians discovering the wreckage of the Asgardian ship, and the attack on Doctor Strange's house in New York. Heroes and villains alike weave in between the 3 separate storylines of the film seamlessly, allowing the successes and failures in each scene leading up to these climaxes to pay off in all 3 of them. With 3 villains and a huge army to fight, everyone in Wakanda gets to play a role in taking down one significant threat to the world or another. Rocket, Groot, and especially Thor go through a ton emotionally and physically in order to make the big magic acts that they need to save the world. Thor drags a goddamn halo ring into position with his feet and tanks the full heat of a star, in addition to the emotional damage of seeing everyone he's ever loved slaughtered in front of him, all in order to earn the power to face Thanos. So, when he flies into Wakanda and starts clearing baddies like it's nothing, then actually delivers a killing blow to the big baddie that no one else could even touch, it doesn't feel like the cheap Deus Ex Machina that it so easily could be. It feels like a culmination of everything that he's struggled through for 3 movies now, and the team fighting Thanos on Titan are all necessary. If even one of them wasn't there, they wouldn't be able to delay Thanos as long as they do, which will probably be the only thing that gives the universe any sense of hope in Part 2. Every single person fighting Thanos gives their all to stop him, and the fact that they can't when we've seen what each hero can accomplish on their own makes him legitimately seem like the scariest bad guy that these heroes have ever faced. Which brings us to the other incredible narrative trick that Infinity War uses to make its story work. See, splitting off all of the Marvel superheroes for a bunch of different big battles exacerbates the problem of trying to tell a cohesive story with all of those characters. With no central character to follow and watch grow through the movie, and no consistent group of characters to follow, it would be very easy to create something that feels like it has no forward momentum. And while Thor accomplishes the most out of any of them, he's still not really the protagonist, at least not in terms of story structure. So, who can fill that role? The answer that Marcus and McFeely arrived at, which seems really obvious in hindsight, but must have been almost inconceivable going into pre-production for this movie, is to make Thanos, the villain, the protagonist of the film. Thanos gets far and away the most screen time out of anyone in this film. It's his decisions and those of his generals that ultimately drive the plot forward at almost every step. By the end of the film, he's the character we understand the best out of anyone in the cast, even if we hopefully don't agree with him, and he's the one who overcomes every challenge put up in front of him in order to emerge victorious. He's also the only character who we see undergo the complete hero's journey arc in this film, even if it happens a bit out of order. He gets the call to action millennia ago when he sees his home planet dying from overpopulation, and when Titan collectively refuses that call, their ultimate destruction forces Thanos to cross the threshold and begin his adventure of killing half of everyone who's ever lived. From his perspective, all life is stuck in a pattern of suffering because the population needed to advance any given civilization to utopia is paradoxically too large to actually sustain it. So, in order to stop that suffering, he aims to eliminate half of all the people in the universe as painlessly as possible, allowing the other half to thrive in their absence. We as an audience don't see him as right, probably, but we can at least understand to some degree how he could see what he's doing as noble. Continuing down the well-tread path of the hero's journey, Thanos goes through a challenging ordeal, killing Gamora for what he sees as the greater good of all living things. He seizes the sword, taking the Soul Stone as his reward for the ordeal, and then begins his journey back by fighting off the Avengers on Titan. After 2 very tough battles, Thanos achieves resurrection and returns to his ordinary world with the elixir of bloodlessly ending all suffering in the universe. Even as you watch in sad, stunned horror as dozens of your favorite characters die eerily peaceful, quiet deaths, you're left feeling a twisted sense of respect towards Thanos for actually pulling it off. So, in one brilliant swoop, making Thanos the main character makes what would otherwise be an insanely controversial ending feel like a natural conclusion to the film's plot, and it gives that story a solid, easy-to-follow narrative through-line that holds together all its disparate moving parts. I don't think that I can overstate how ingenious this is, or how impressive it is that they managed to make the ending of this film a legit surprise. I don't know about any of you guys, but I kinda thought that the age of the big, earth-shaking blockbuster with a genuinely surprising ending kinda ended with the internet. Yet here we are, looking at a screenplay that film schools are going to be teaching and dissecting for years to come. I'm sure that I've still only scratched the surface of the brilliant writing on display in this movie, but hopefully this video has given any writers out there some inspiration as to how thinking outside the box and making clever structural changes can make their stories shine. And for everyone else, I just hope I've given you a new appreciation and respect for what the team behind this movie really accomplished. I'm Jeff Thu, professional shitbag, and I don't feel so good.